Hi, I'm Lilith D'Licious, the headmistress of Sinners Dollhouse and teacher, and I'd like to teach you some basics about feather fans. As you might know, feather fans are one of the most showgirl accessories you can have in burlesque. I think they have become most popular by Faye Bacon and Sally Rand in the 20s and 30s. I think Sally Rand is probably the most known performer with huge feather fans that completely covered her. Now, before I teach you some movements you can do with feather fans and a little choreography, I'd like to tell you a little about the different kind of fans you can find and how to hold them correctly. Now, in most shops, like carnival shops, you can find small hand fans with or without feathers, like this one. They have like a plastic base with feathers glued upon them. They are very small, you can hold them in one hand, even if you have tiny hands like me. You can move them very quickly, but they don't really cover that much. As you can see, I can cover a little, but not really that much. You also have like medium-sized feather fans. These are complete feathers with also a kind of acrylic base they have. I'll put a little closer so you can see it. As you can see, it's single layered, which means it's just one layer of feathers, which makes it very see-through. I mean, you can see my hand moving behind it. It's very see-through. It's medium-sized, so I can cover myself a little. Not completely, but, well, I can cover myself quite a bit. And then, of course, you have like the bigger ones, like these, which can cover you mostly. You have like bigger sizes as well, of course. These are ostrich feathers from the male ostrich. That's why they're the big ones and kind of fluffy. These also have like an acrylic base, the ones I have, but you can find them with a bamboo base as well. Feather fans with a bamboo base, they have a very elegantly, flowly feel to it. They're very light, they're smaller to hold in your hand, but for me they don't really work because I like to incorporate some feisty, fast movements, and if you do that with bamboo staves, you tend to break them quite a lot. So I chose for acrylic staves. They're not as pretty as bamboo staves. I'll come closer so you can see it. They're not as pretty, of course, but I embellished them with stones that match the color of my feathers, so it's, well, it's a little prettier, I think. Now these are double layered, which means I can hold it and you don't see which color of clothing I'm wearing underneath. While with the single layered ones, the one I showed you before, you have a little see-through. Now everything has its pros and cons, of course. It's also about the style you want and the movements you want to do with it. Now I want to teach you how to hold them correctly. Why? Because with big feather fans you have a left one and a right one. With the small ones they're almost always right-handed. I'm sorry for all the left-handed people in the world, but it's just how it is. Now with the big fans you have a left and a right side. Now how do you know which one is which? As you can see with this pair, well, I've marked it, but that's also a pro tip I can give you. Mark your fans, so in case of stress you know which one goes in which hand. Now, but if you see the top stave is on the right side of my feather, which means it's a right-handed one. How do you hold it? Well, you put your thumb on the top stave. So you see this top stave and I put my thumb on it. And on the back side, the little finger goes to the bottom stave. And in that way, you have a firm grip on your staves and on your fan, and you can move it without it closing from itself. Now, from the left side, it's actually quite the same. If you can see the staves, the top stave is on the left-hand side, which means it's a left one. I also put my thumb on the top stave and my little finger on the bottom stave. And in that way, I have a firm grip on both my fans, and I can move them around without them closing. Unless I would want them to close, of course, and you can close them yourself. Now, I want to give you a little tip, because if you're on stage and you tend to get a little sweaty because of the lights and the stress and all that, your hands get slippery, and if you use acrylic staves, they tend to slip out of your hands, which is not that fun when you're on stage. So what I do when I go on stage is I use talc powder, which is, I'll put it a little closer. It's the powder you use on baby pots, and it's an absorbent, so I put just some on my hand. You can see I put some on my hands, and I rub my hands together, and now I have like two wide hands. But it prevents your hand from getting slippery and sweaty and all that, so you have a better grip on your both fans, and you can move them around without them leaving your hand. Well, I hope you found it interesting, the different kind of fans you can find and how to hold them correctly. And I hope to see you again for some basic feather fan movements.